Welcome back to Eye on Foxborough. I'm Karen Guregian. Today, I am thrilled to have former Patriots quarterback Brian Hoyer with me. Hey, Brian, how's it going?
Hi, Karen. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. The draft is over, so I'm really good. The Patriots had 8 picks. Obviously, everyone's focused on the number one guy taken third overall, Drake Maye, quarterback. I know you've done a little homework on, the quarterbacks or, pre-draft. What was your impression of Drake Maye?
Yeah, I think he was definitely the third quarterback, in the draft behind Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. Watching these guys getting prepared to cover some of this draft stuff, I would say he has a lot of upside. I think the other two guys, you kind of know what you're going to get, which is obviously very talented quarterbacks. I think Drake Maye has more upside that maybe he hasn't reached yet, which is obviously always intriguing. I think there's a lot of comparisons to a Josh Allen type quarterback, which, you know, Josh Allen, in my opinion, is probably the most talented quarterback in the NFL. So to compare him to him is maybe a little too soon, but I see why people do it. Similar playing styles, big, strong arm, can pull the ball down and run. I think the biggest difference is the size. When you see Josh Allen on the field, 6'5", 245, 250. I mean, Drake Maye's 6'4", but he's in a 220 range. So, those hits start to add up, and Josh has kind of established himself being able to withstand those hits. So, that's something that Drake will have to either, get bigger to take those hits or maybe run less. I don't know about that. But I was impressed with him, and I think, if they were hell bent on drafting a quarterback at 3, then he was the right guy to choose.
Hmm. I in doing, my homework and background on him too, some of the knocks on him have to do with footwork. They have to do with, you know, decision making, reading defenses, and so on and so forth. Are those fixable? I mean, at this level with the right coaching?
Yeah, I think so. I think, when I look back at my college self and then realize what I learned along the way, I mean, I improved year in, year out by coaching, by learning, by being around great players. Obviously, I was privileged enough to be around Tom Brady for as many years as I was, but that kind of you start to pick things up via osmosis at that point. So, having a guy like Jacoby Brissett will really help Drake because Jacoby's, a veteran who's seen it all, done it all, has had success. Will be a great mentor for him, and I think that's something that he'll need to lean heavily on. But when it comes to footwork, I think those are one of the things that really my footwork got better when I got to the NFL because of how focused we were on it. I think in college you got to remember there's so much limited time that those coaches have with the players, and when they get out to practice, it's about getting ready for the games. So I think watching his footwork, there's some stuff in the pocket that he can definitely improve on, and I think that's totally doable.
Getting back to Jacoby for a second, I know there's been young quarterbacks who have been around, been on teams where the guy ahead of them hasn't exactly been helpful, because it's somebody trying to take their job, so to speak.
Sure.
I think Jacoby's a different cat, I think he will do whatever it takes, both to prepare to start until Drake is ready,
Mhm.
while also helping Drake along. Do you agree with that?
Well, look, I was accused of this by Johnny Manziel. So I
Oh,
think the difference of, for me, what I learned from Tom was I wasn't going to go to him and ask him 100 questions. It was my job to sit back and learn from him. And I think, as a competitor, you never want anyone to do your job. You never want to see anyone doing your job. But, all you got to do is go out there and do the best you can. I'm talking about Jacoby, prepare, play, practice, and the young guys should basically learn from that. And if you come to someone with a question, then of course you give them the knowledge that they have. But like Tom Brady was concerned about beating, the Baltimore Ravens and Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, and not, teaching me how to play quarterback in the NFL. And I think that's the biggest misconception is, oh, this quarterback's going to have to go in there and really groom this quarterback. That's not the quarterback's job. That's the coach's job. And I think just being around someone where you see them, study film the correct way, go to practice with the right approach, break the huddle. little subtle things like that where it's your responsibility as a young guy to pick up on that by just watching. You don't need to be pestering the starter with a bunch of different questions. Now, if you have something that's, really bugging you and you don't feel like the coach can give you an answer, then you go to the starting quarterback and ask him. And I think, I know Jacoby and I know he's a great competitor, but he's also a great human being and a great guy. And so he won't, hold anything back as far as, helping Drake out. But I think, like I said before, Drake will learn so much just by watching Jacoby and his approach on a day in, day out basis.
There's also, I was wondering what your take was too on, how quickly to start a rookie quarterback.
Right.
I think going back in time, there didn't seem to be, you wanted to develop the kid and, put him in with when he's ready. Now it's almost like the demand is, well, God, you pick this kid number 3, he's got to start right, start
Right.
right away. Any thoughts on how, how that process should develop for Drake, and should it be an automatic thing that, he'll be the week 1 starter?
I mean, I don't think so. I think you even heard Gerard and Elliott kind of say it like we're gonna take our time and when he's ready, he's ready. And I think of those top 3 quarterbacks, you look at like Caleb Williams is going to a great situation. He's going to a good team who happened to have the number 1 pick because of a trade they made last year, and they've made some improvements. And then not only that, but they go out and draft the receiver at the 9th overall pick. Jaden Daniels is going to the Commanders, who, they weren't great last year, but they actually have some talented skill players around them. And those 2 guys I expect to start day one. Drake Maye, I don't think there's any necessary reason to start him day one. I think you have a great veteran quarterback in Jacoby, who can win games in the NFL. He's proven that, time and time again. And to be honest with you, it's not as good of a situation, as a few of those other teams. Like we kind of talked about on draft night with JJ McCarthy. I mean, he may end up being the offensive rookie of the year just because of the situation he's going into. He's going into a great coaching situation, a great skill player situation, and really a good team in general. And so usually sometimes with those young quarterbacks, it's all about, the situation you're going into. You look at Patrick Mahomes, and he's become, the top quarterback in the game, but he went to a great team. He didn't start until the last game of the season, his rookie year, because the Chiefs had already kind of sealed their playoff spot. So it was kind of a throwaway game. And then the next year he's in the AFC Championship game. So I think so much of it has to do with timing and situation. And so for me, that was my one thing. Like if you have the 3rd pick in the draft, I hope you're drafting someone who's going to start day one. And if you decide to go quarterback at Drake Maye, I don't think that's the case. I think you let him develop. I think you let him come in, learn from Jacoby, get coached really well, improve his footwork, improve his ability to, read the defenses, those types of things. And you don't rush him into it. I think that's probably the best, scenario for him.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. The Patriots drafted another quarterback in the 6th round, and some people were taken aback by that. But I think Joe Milton is an interesting prospect.
Mhm.
He can throw the ball a mile, but he has a ton of things to work out. Have you seen much of him, or did you look at any tape on him?
I mean, just the 80-yard bombs that he's throwing. I mean, the guy has ridiculous arm talent. I mean, really, when you think about it, 6th rounder, those guys sometimes aren't even guaranteed to make your team. So you're just taking a flyer on someone. And, maybe he comes in and 2 or 3 years down the road, he's put into action, plays a few games, and he becomes a valuable trade asset. I know people are kind of scratching their head. Why would you do that? But at that point, I mean, you're probably just trying to draft the best, most talented player available, and maybe that was who they had, on their board at that time. I don't think it's I mean, in the same draft that RG3 was drafted, that's when Kirk Cousins was drafted. And I'm not saying that that's going to play out this way, but as Gerard said, we're in the business of drafting good players, and really, having a guy like that who has the arm talent, if you bring him in, clearly he's not going to play in the immediate future. Let him learn, let him become an NFL quarterback. And you just never know. I think it becomes a valuable asset maybe down the road. Maybe he plays 1 or 2 games, which we've seen in this league. If you play 1 or 2 good games at quarterback, you become a valuable, asset to the team, whether that's via trade or, eventually becoming a starter.
In terms of scheme and stuff, does it make sense, to have your starter and backup or backups have similar traits? Obviously they're, they can both throw the ball a mile, Joe a few miles further, but they do have a similar skill set. Do you think that does that play out? It doesn't even matter at all.
I think you want to have some kind of carryover. I don't think they all have to be the exact, 6'4", 225, same 40-yard dash. I think having a little bit of variation is okay. I mean, you look at a team like the Ravens and they have Lamar Jackson. They've kind of really, just with the backups have to go in a similar kind of strategy with those guys because he's so unique. So I don't think they all have to be super similar, but I think, they all need to be somewhat in the same realm of type of player.
Hmm. Elliot Wolf, has made it a point pre-draft and even pre-free agency to talk about, weaponizing the offense, or at least, providing, a better support system for the quarterback in terms of, guys who can get open or guys he can get the ball to. The Patriots took two wide receivers, one Jalen Polk from Washington, played with Michael Penix, and the other one, Javon Baker, who was at UCF. What can you tell me about either one of those guys?
Yeah, I think obviously, like I said, if you have the third pick in the draft, you want that guy to maybe contribute day one. It's nice to be able to draft a guy in the second round who's probably going to contribute day one in Jalen Polk, watching his highlights. Big, strong. He's not the fastest in the world, but he's big, strong, goes up and high points the ball, and was in a system where they really threw the ball down the field. And he was a vertical threat. And to be honest with you, I see a lot of Gabe Davis from Buffalo in him, a big, strong guy who's a vertical threat down. I mean, I don't know what the number was exactly, but Gabe Davis's average, yards per catch was like 20 some yards at one point a few seasons ago. So, you pair him up with a Kendrick Bourne, hopefully Juju's healthy again. You have a little slot guy, and I guess everyone calls him Pop Shota.
Yeah.
So that's good. And then you add, is it Javon Baker?
Yes.
To
Yep.
me, he's kind of similar to Jalen Polk, similar size, similar speed, a vertical threat. So to add two guys like that is obviously beneficial to not only Drake Maye, but to Jacoby Brissett as well.
Do you, as a quarterback, obviously, is it important? People, pundits, critics, myself, have been on them to get, receivers who, defenses worry about, or someone with speed that can open the, spread open the field. How important is that? And I mean, the Patriots seem to have a collection of receivers, with the exception of Tyquan Thornton, who all have a similar skill set.
Right.
How do you view the arsenal, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, one, it depends on the scheme that you're going to run. And I'm not totally familiar with Alex Van Pelt and the scheme that he's running. I think it's pretty much West Coast, which, when you look at the West Coast, like when I played for Kyle Shanahan, he always had one fast guy. And he always said, this is the guy who we're either going to throw too deep or we're going to get the defenses way the hell back so we can hit the underneath stuff. So in that system, you probably need one who can just basically take the top off the defense, and run those deep routes. And if they don't respect them, you throw it up to them. But I think also you having those big guys who can catch, 20-yard in cuts across the middle, balls outside, posts, things like that. I think those are the guys that they drafted. And, you mix in a Kendrick Bourne who, I know he's coming off of an ACL, but KB is kind of a jack of all trades. He can play inside, he can play outside. He's got great hands. He's a phenomenal route runner. Honestly, one of my favorite receivers that I ever played with. And, so hopefully he returns and is healthy and they figure out a way. I think so much can be done with scheme when it comes to the receiver group. If you're not going to have one of those elite top five guys, then, you do it with scheme and you do it as a group. That's really the reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've learned from watching certain coordinators, Josh McDaniels,
Mhm.
you can scheme guys open.
Yep.
It's not that, they have to have burning speed and, whatever. But if you have enough going on, enough motion here, there, guys can get open and they can get open quickly,
Right.
depending on, what to do. Um, I think both Baker and Polk are contested catch guys too.
Yeah.
They're
That's what I
really,
saw. I mean, watching the highlights, getting ready for this, you see him go up and, like I said, high point the ball, back shoulders. Um, there was one, I think it was Polk, I think, went up and just ripped it away from a guy he wasn't really a great throw, but you see the aggressiveness of I'm gonna get this ball. No one else is gonna get it. And so you definitely want that, especially from young receivers, to have that aggressiveness and really, help the quarterback out sometimes. We can't always throw it perfectly. So, when you have receivers that you can trust that if I throw him a 50-50 ball, it really becomes a 60-40 or 70-30 that he's gonna come down with it. That's all you're really looking for.
hmm. Well, looks like the quarterback room is taking a completely new
Yeah.
shape. I'm not sure if Bailey Zappi figures into their plans. But I think, just personally speaking, it was good to give Mack Jones a chance somewhere else.
Yep.
Do you agree he sort of had to get out of New England to get his career back on track?
Yeah, I think so. I think having been here his first two seasons and seeing what it went from his rookie year to basically his second year and kind of what transpired that year as far as, the offense and all of those things. And then, watching from afar last year, I could just see that it wasn't the same player and obviously staying in contact with him, I think he's excited about a fresh opportunity. And I think that's probably, the best move, which it's all crazy. Like, had the situation been better here, maybe we aren't talking about Drake Maye, and it's really, I feel for Mac because, he did so well his rookie year. He learned from a great coach in Josh McDaniels, and then it all just spiraled out of control. And really, there was no, um, you know, life preserver thrown out to him. It was just him sinking, and I felt terrible for him watching him. I'd see clips from the sideline. I can just see there was no confidence, and I think going to a new place, oddly enough, where he's from, I think he can gain some of that confidence back. And you never know, like I said in the NFL, you just never know when the opportunity will come. And so maybe he plays a few games and gets things back on the right track, and then eventually go somewhere else. I don't know. I mean, obviously with Trevor Lawrence there, I think that's probably their long-term guy. But you go to a place like that, a good team, get a chance to play a few games and kind of get things back on track, and then go from there.
Yeah. It's different in Foxborough now. Obviously, Coach Belichick, they've parted ways after, same guy 24 years, and now it's something new. Something new and something old because Gerard Mayo has been, a Patriot, a coach, and now the head coach. How do you see him doing?
I think Gerard would do great. I've known Gerard since 2009. We were neighbors for a long time down in Foxborough. So now not only would we see each other all day at work, but then we'd go home and pull into opposite driveways. So I think the thing that I love about Gerard is, he left football. He was kind of away from football for a while. Then he came back to coaching. And I think that gives you perspective. I think he's doing it because he loves it. And I think anybody who's doing it, for those reasons, you're in it for the right reason. I think the great thing that Gerard has is being a former player. I know, for me, if you look around the league, Detroit's got Dan Campbell, Houston's got D'Amico Ryans. This is kind of a trend, and it's been a successful trend of having these former players come in. And I think, being in Vegas last year, the one thing I would say, I saw with Antonio Pierce coming in was, the guys just looked at him like you've sat in our seat before, you get it. And I think you're seeing that around the league. Obviously, he got promoted to full-time head coach. I think there is a level of that. And I think being young, relating to these young guys, that's important. And I think not only all of that encompassed, but Gerard, like you said, played for Bill, knows the culture, And so he can kind of take his own spin on it and maybe modernize it, along with, getting up in front of the team and everybody looks at him like, wow, this was a Pro Bowl player. This was a rookie of the year. He knows what it takes to be successful. And he also knows the grind that we're going through on a day in, day out basis.
Lastly, just looking at, the changes that were made, obviously head coach, almost it's a completely new offensive staff, some new people on the defensive staff as well. They've re-signed a lot of in-house players. They've added on in the draft as well. I mean, the Patriots, coming off a 4-win season, do you think they've done enough to both be better than last year and also perhaps pique the curiosity of people to tune in to see, how they're going to kind of get up off the mat?
Yeah, I think the curiosity is going to be there just because of a new regime change. There's going to be a freshness. There's going to be an intrigue of how's it going to go. I don't know if they've done enough. I mean, I think, when I look at the team, there's definitely still some weak points. And I think the one thing that they're going to realize now is, Bill's no longer here. Tom Brady's no longer the quarterback. You're going to have to shell out, the money for free agents to come here because one, the weather's not great. Two, there's a lot higher taxes here than Florida, Tennessee, Las Vegas, places like that. So, back in the day, people wanted to come play for Bill or people wanted to come play with Tom. And I think that's what you're going to see when free agency rolls around from here on out. You're going to have to pay top dollar to get top free agents. And I think that's one thing that maybe a little different from years past. So, I think that's one way you build a team, or you continue to draft well. You stack good drafts together, and 3-4 years down the road, you've built your team that way. So, look, I don't know how things will go this year. I'm excited for Gerard, and I'm excited for those guys to get a fresh start. But I think there's a lot of things that need to be improved on too.
Yeah, well, we all look at left tackle and say that might not be quite taken care of just yet. And to your point, they had quite a significant offer out to Calvin Ridley.
Hmm.
And he chose somewhere that not only paid him more, but doesn't have taxes in Tennessee. And it's not that Tennessee was any much better than the Patriots, but I think the tax factor, and if you're not going to go above and beyond, to equate that, it's going to work against the Patriots.
Right. I think back in the day, like, okay, play with Tom Brady, get coached by Bill Belichick, and every year have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Those were three very appealing things. So maybe you took a little less money to come here and do those things. Or, if it was always even, then you were going to lean that way. I don't, especially in this day and age, the way that, this generation is, it's about my brand, my, career, all of those things. People are going to always look to take care of themselves. Whereas I feel like, even 10 years ago, the chance to come to New England and win a championship was intriguing to a lot of guys that I played with.
Well, you came back 3 or 4 times, so
Yeah, that's true.
So it was appealing to you. But
Yep.
anyway, hey Brian, thanks a lot for your time. Good luck down the road in your future, and maybe we can connect again.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen.